When we started to speak out around July, a little bit sooner, but we got a lot of attention starting in July, you know, we were promptly, as the pastor said, deplatformed, and it doesn't bother me so much. I know the information. It bothers me tremendously on behalf of all of humanity, right? This is a crime against humanity. There's a physician in the Netherlands who's bringing a lawsuit in The Hague, calling it that, calling this a crime against humanity. There was a lot of information you haven't heard. There was a Senate testimony about a month ago. A bunch of doctors went and testified. It was, I believe, it was Senator Johnson as the chairman. You can find it on our website, americasfrontlinedoctors.com. But the doctors testified that the vast majority of deaths in America would have not ever happened. Not ever happened. I start with that because when you understand, you must understand the magnitude of the lie to understand what they're trying to tell you about these experimental vaccines. So we need to just kind of go through that for a little bit. So I know some of you heard a little, this first sentence, which I said this morning, but the disinformation was apparent since the beginning, right? We call this illness COVID-19, but its real name should be after the location from where it arose, which is Wuhan, China. And if you remember, it was called the Wuhan virus for a while, I don't know, a month or so, before we discovered the Chinese Communist Party didn't like that name. They set about putting a lot of pressure on media and other, politicians, let's say, to change it, and they started calling it the coronavirus. They called it the coronavirus because it is actually a coronavirus, but that became very confusing to doctors and scientists, because there are 7 coronaviruses. This is just number 7. So we used to use the word coronavirus sometimes on our charts when we meant a common cold. A person would come into the ER in my case, and they just had a common cold, and I would sometimes write coronavirus on the chart as the diagnosis. So it was pretty confusing for doctors and scientists to call it the coronavirus, right? So they had to change the name again, and it became known by its acronym, Coronavirus Disease 2019, COVID-19. I have to start there, because it was never a racist or weird thing to call it the Wuhan virus, right? There's so many diseases that are named after the location from which they arise. There's Zika and Ebola, there's Middle East respiratory syndrome, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, Lyme disease. I mean, the list is endless. German measles, Spanish flu. This list is endless. So you need to understand that deception was there from the very beginning.